The Netherlands in front, but Australia looking for a quick comeback. They've got it! Tim Cahill! Astonishing!
Goes alone, blocked by Paul Cahill! He's on the spot. That's his goal.
Having a wrestling match as it goes in. Oh, it's a goal! And it's him, Cahill.
On the pitch, I give everything. It's something that Australians do. We never give up on and off the park, and we always, make sure we give our all and, make sure that we're good sportsmen at the same time.
Australia have done it!
Especially as they have the impetus. Aloisi, Cahill, Cahill! Tim Cahill has done it again! What a goal by Tim Cahill! 2-1 Australia! Oh, it's a wonderful moment!
Tim Cahill, the goal scorer, the footballer, arguably the greatest Socceroo of all time. A man we all know for his darting headers, his goal scoring abilities, and the ability to bring back Australia from the dead. However, Tim Cahill's career hasn't always been smooth sailing. Let's go to the beginning of Cahill's footballing journey. At the age of 16, in Cahill's autobiography, he recalls the moment where he came home from school to his parents, a little bit emotional but happy at the same time. His dad had just been on the phone to people in England and told him the news that, son, the ability and the chance is there. Cahill had the difficult decision at the age of 16 of whether he wanted to leave all his friends behind, finish school, or to achieve the dream of becoming a professional footballer at a very young age. Tim Cahill had a major decision to make, and a decision which not many teenagers at that age would have to make. Sacrifices, the name of the chapter in Tim Cahill's autobiography, Legacy. Tim had the opportunity to leave school, be on his own, with not a lot of money. However, all these sacrifices accounted for one dream: to become a professional footballer. Cahill had such aspirations to make football his job that during school, when it came to subject selections, Cahill had Spanish, Italian and French as his 3 subjects out of the 5. All this for the reason of, so what if I play in those countries and I need to learn those languages? And that, I feel like from a young age, is what separates with a different mentality. At the young age, you're still in school, he goes, you know what, I might not need accounting, I might not need all these subjects. However, I want to learn these languages because you never know. And evidently, it's proved to be worth it. Playing in the likes of Japan, playing obviously with the Socceroos in all different countries. So for me, sacrifices, as he states in his autobiography, was a massive thing in his life. Now, I want to quote one of the quotes in that chapter, was, I didn't have a fallback plan because I had no intention of falling back. Still in his teenage years, Tim Cahill arrived at the Den of Millwall, still in awe of the opportunity of playing for the biggest club in England, let alone at that time one of the biggest clubs in the world, with everyone knowing the great scale of the supporter base. Cahill admits in his autobiography, Legacy, that he'd even wear the training kit and even a couple match-worn kits around to the shopping centre just to get a few of the little looks that he would get, pouring a nice little top with his initials on it, as we all could probably understand. However, the opportunity to play in the Premiership came a lot sooner than expected for Cahill, as Nottingham Forest were offering Cahill almost double than what he was on when he arrived at the trial from Millwall, and the Premiership side being QPR who got offer him £350 a week. However, Cahill, as I quote again from his book, never forget where you came from. This was very important for Cahill, as he knew that at the time when he was still in Australia playing in the local leagues in Sydney and New South Wales, that not many teams were looking after him. However, Millwall were the one who took the chance on him. He did well in the trials and he secured the job. So this is very important for Cahill, as he stated in his book, was saying that starting off from the club who gave me an opportunity is where I wanted to finish, which is a very mature decision made by a teenager and could also play a big part in his upcoming career, which we'll learn about a little bit later on. Now, fast forward to the 2nd of May 1998, a young Tim Cahill will make his first substitute appearance for Millwall. At the Den against Bournemouth, all hopes were high. However, the season didn't really pan out as expected. That game didn't really pan out as expected, still at a young age. However, the following year, getting to a very low point with suffering an ACL injury, keeping me out for a long time, to reaching the next level of his birth of his son, Kaya, the first of the mini Cahills. would see in 2004, which would arguably be the pinnacle of Tim Cahill's Millwall career, that FA Cup run. It would be the semi-final of the FA Cup at Old Trafford against Sunderland. Arguably, and still probably the biggest game Millwall has had to date. The fans were around Old Trafford, there's not much more you want to be. Tim Cahill, guess what? He did it. Scored an absolute peach of a goal in the top corner.
Back pushed on by Livermore. Pushing down by Bell. He's just sold a bit short there by McCartney. Highfield goes alone, blocked by Paul. Cahill! He's on the spot. That's his game. And Tim Cahill puts Millwall in front of Old Trafford in the FA Cup semi-final. What a mistake. What a mistake at the back. But my goodness, did they take advantage of it? But only because of that man's ability to finish a really...
Roosting the ball in the back. And guess what? That's right. Cahill sent Millwall through to the final. Now the final was against arguably one of the greatest teams ever in world football. Definitely one of the best teams in England. And that was Fergie's Manchester United team, coming up against the likes of Ronaldo, the likes of Scholes, the likes of Van Nistelrooy. It's fair to say that Millwall's expectations in that final were pretty grim. However, as expected, Manchester United were to beat them 3-0 comfortably. So a deflated Millwall team, but still to this day, Cahill says that was one of his best moments in a Millwall jumper, experiencing the Wembley final. All of that sort of scenery, all of that sort of emotion was arguably the pinnacle of his career. 58 goals later, 241 appearances, Cahill recalls leaving the Den, Millwall, one of the toughest decisions he's ever had to make. Now, he achieved plenty from scoring promotion from the second division to first division, making the semi-final playoff for promotion to the Premiership, and making the FA Cup run. However, at the age of 24, Cahill knew that a change was necessary. Cahill departed the navy blue of Millwall for the blue of Merseyside. He was brought in for a little bit over £1 million at that time under the new gaffer David Moyes. This was all in the same time where Wayne Rooney had just been sold to Manchester United, the boyhood man coming from Everton to Man United, and they also signed many other players during this period also. So a little bit of a reshuffle was made at Everton. Now, Cahill was obviously excited playing in the Premier League, wearing the number 17, where he scored many goals in his career. However, at that time, before signing the contract, a offer from the Socceroos to come and play for them again was once brought to him. Now, this kind of jeopardized his opportunity and the contract, because the first 5 games of the season meant that Cahill could be missing out on. Now, as a new striker, new midfielder being brought into the club, you always want to start best. And Cahill emphasises in his book, in his autobiography, that starting off on the right foot, no matter where you go, and making the right impression is what is most important at times. So we'll go to his 5th game for Everton, 5 games into the season. And every player, every new signing knows that you want to start off on a great scoring record. His game was against Manchester City, and of course, Cahill comes on and he scores the winner against Manchester City in his first ever game for Everton.
Driven in by Everton, and Cahill has given Everton the lead.
However, once again, a very high point turns to a very low in a sense, because Cahill was already on a yellow card, and after scoring and the crazy scenes of Everton, changing the blue from Merseyside to upholding the success of Everton once again, Cahill was sent off for lifting the shirt over his head. So, that's right, Cahill, his first game for Everton, scored a goal, the winner against Manchester City. However, he got sent off. Now, what a way to start off your career, I say. Now, Cahill would form many relationships throughout his time at Everton, with forming the likes of relationship with Mikel Arteta, which is still well known to now, being supposedly good friends to this day, and gaffer David Moyes, who Cahill thanks a lot of his abilities and his growth to. Now, Everton at this period of time were sort of a team where the mid-table team could push for Europe, would get an occasional win against a top 6 team, but still against the lower teams, a little bit suspect. However, a memory that stands out to Cahill the most was obviously the Liverpool derbies, the Merseyside derbies, which you all know were fiery back in the day, it's still now, and a 3-all draw with Manchester United, where they originally were 3-0 down. So Cahill once again inspiring a young, flat Everton squad to bring back from 3-0 against the likes of Wayne Rooney to bring it back 3-all. 226 games later and 56 goals, Cahill was starting to reach what he felt like was the end of his Everton career. He still loved all his time there. However, as he says in his book, his body was spent, and he realises that the chance to play in England every single week with FA Cup games, other Community Shield games, in his words, his body was spent. Now, at this time, there was an offer from American squad New York Red Bulls, who were slowly coming up, obviously sponsored by Red Bulls. They had a bit of money to their name. Now, Cahill believed that a move to America and a move to the MLS, which isn't as taxing on the body, would not only be the right decision for him, for his family, and at that time for his footballing career. Therefore, a move to the Big Apple was made. Cahill would take his talents to New York Red Bulls, playing in the MLS for a total of 2 seasons from 2012 to 2014. During his time, he had played with the likes of Thierry Henry, the French legend, and Brazilian maestro Juninho, the free-kick specialist. At his time at New York Red Bulls, he won the Supporters' Shield Cup, along with scoring the fastest goal in the history of the MLS, which is still the fastest goal to date. Now, from here, Cahill would take his talents to Shanghai Greenland Schwenha FC for a season, later to Zhejiang Greentown for a season before making his long-awaited return to Australia, playing in the A-League under Melbourne City. Melbourne City in Australia here, bought under Melbourne City's owners, got a good affiliation there. However, it was well documented and shown in the media that his relationship with Warren Joyce, the gaffer at the time, wasn't great. Only scoring 11 goals in 28 appearances, Cahill's season and career for Melbourne City didn't really live up to the hype. Now, Cahill would leave here, and Cahill said in his autobiography that a lot of people think that he was not impressed and not happy with Australia at the time, which he came out to say that it wasn't all that. He just wanted to, and believed that for his footballing career and for himself personally, he wanted to go and explore a lot of other countries. Now, he'd make his footballing start in Jamshedda FC in India, making a small couple of appearances there, 11 appearances, scoring 2 goals. Now, arguably the moment we've all been waiting for, Tim Cahill's Socceroos career. Now, whether it be that game against Uruguay, that goal against Netherlands, or that goal against Japan, Tim Cahill is arguably one of the greatest to ever don the green and gold. Australia football took a turn for the best in 2005 when their World Cup qualifier against Uruguay brought so many tears to the fans, footballing fans in Australia. Now, a win against Uruguay would see Australia qualify for the first World Cup in 36 years. Now, in typical Australia fashion, we had to go the dramatic way. A penalty shootout against the likes of Veron, with Australia having the likes of Cahill, Harry Kewell, Viduka, Schwarzer, John Aloisi. Now, in the best way possible, Mark Schwarzer steps up, saves. Now, I always remember the crowd at Sydney, ANZ Stadium, going absolutely mental. Everyone was on the nerves, the commentators. Commentators are meant to be semi-unbiased. However, there was only one dream and one hope. That was for Australia to qualify. Now, the penalty shootouts happened. Schwarzer saved one. Australia scored. Australia scored another one. Uruguay scored. Viduka, the Australian captain, the lead striker, man, arguably also one of the greatest ever Australian soccer players to play of all time. Someone who you'd bag on scoring a goal any other week. Misses. Which all came down to Schwarzer. Emotions are running high. 36-year drought is on the line. Schwarzer saves. Now, all that we needed to do now was for John Aloisi
the Adelaide boy to step up and score. Aloisi steps up. Bang. Aloisi scores. Australia is through to the first World Cup in 36 years. Now the scenes of the crowd going crazy, the commentators shedding tears, Cahill running off, taking his top off, going absolutely nuts on the sideline. Now breaking the 31-year streak, Kosta's side was the first in a long time to really prove and show hope to the fans of Australia and put football back on the map here. Now heading into the World Cup, Australia was the second lowest ranked country. Now heading in, we had a difficult group in Japan, Croatia and Brazil. Therefore, it's fair to say that there was zero expectations coming up against the likes of Ronaldinho, one of the best players of all time also in his own right. Now playing with the likes of Cahill, Viduka and Bresciano, there were many egos. However, the one thing that Cahill emphasised in his book at this period of time qualified for the World Cup was the gaffer Gus Hiddink, a legend in Socceroos' eyes, was that any egos and you're home. The first match in this tournament would be against Asian rivals Japan, and Cahill expresses how important it was for him personally to start off on a right foot. However, the night before, Gus Hiddink and assistant coach Graham Arnold would come down and break the news to him. Cahill would be starting on the bench. Now, once again, as everyone would, emotionally and a little bit disappointed that the first game after this historic path there, Cahill will be starting onto the bench. However, 30 minutes into the game, Australia find themselves 1-0 down. 60th minute, Cahill comes on for Bresciano, another young Australian prospect at that time, absolutely killing it and will go down as one of the greats to also play for Australia. Now, Cahill knew his job, come on and make a difference. Minute 80, the ball comes in and it's pinging around in the box. Players are kicking it around, Japanese players are flinging their foot at it. It's shambles. But guess who? Tim Cahill was there to strike the living daylights out of the ball into the back net, and the scenes were unbelievable. Australia were not even predicted to score in the World Cup, and guess what? Tim Cahill went and scored Australia's first goal, proving absolutely pivotal in the career of him and the rest of the squad, giving them enough encouragement to continue. Now the world will, at this moment, will get to see the iconic corner flag celebration. However, it wasn't over yet. 88 minutes in, the unthinkable happens. A peach of a goal. As Australia would go on to win the game in the space of mere minutes, Cahill had changed the game, and Aloisi had shut the door with a darting Cahill run. Approaching to high-five Gus Hiddink, but says, no, we've got to keep on running. Crosses it in, Aloisi 3-1. Thanks for coming. History was made. Now, in a matter of minutes, Cahill went from a personal disappointment to being at the centre of footballers in Australia greatest moment.
It's a dream come true. I think, just to play for your country is one thing, but obviously to break this record is something that I want to go on and, achieve more and try and really, score loads of goals for my country. But the main thing is without Tommy's crossing and the way the boys played and making space, I wouldn't have got the goals. So, overall, it was just good to be playing tonight and being part of the squad, and a real proud moment for me, the Australians, and obviously my family.
Heading into the 2014 World Cup, now managed under Holger Oshik, the lead-up wasn't great. Unconvincing win over the likes of Jordan and Iraq proved to be quite deflating to a young Socceroos team. After a few friendlies and horrible performances, Holger Oshik was sacked. And in comes the A-League prodigy, Ange Postecoglou. A man who had an impressive resume in the A-League with Brisbane Roar, Melbourne Victory. It was recommended a lot, and I think fans were pretty excited of the fact Ange was going to manage his team. Now the likes of Lucas Neal, Brett Emerton and Harry Kewell quickly were beginning to fade out of the squad, which their fans questioning, and the media especially, will Cahill be dropped? Now Ange came in and really made an effort to get a young force in, and quick attacking football, composed football, which also left Cahill to beg the question, am I still going to be in favour? Now, Cahill, and as I quote from his autobiography again, he goes, I found someone who loves the Socceroos as much as I do. Our spirits are high, of course, for the third time in a row, Australia has drawn the group of death. Netherlands, Spain and Chile. Every time the Socceroos it happens. Australia already weren't that convincing headed in, but now you've got the favourites Netherlands, reigning champions Spain, and a very, very good Chile team. Now, I remember at that time, personally, Australia, I think everyone was saying, would be lucky to score a goal in this tournament. Just because, Van Persie, Iron Robin, you got Spain with the likes of David Silva, Arturo Vidal from Chile. It just looked too good. And obviously, we weren't that good going into the World Cup either. Now, first game in against Chile, the Socceroos had a horrible first 30 minutes. Relying on leaders such as Tim Cahill, Bresciano and Jedinak, it was important for the Socceroos to make a turn. However, once again, the man Tim Cahill was there, a darting header into the back of the net. The next 15 minutes were all Australia. Now, unfortunately, a goal was overruled and saw Chile winning the game. But it wasn't all doom and gloom from there, because next match, we had Netherlands. Now, this was where Netherlands had just beat Spain 5-1, and it's fair to say that Socceroos will be happy to concede just 2. A moment of brilliance at the start of the game saw Australia go down 1-0 because of Iron Robin, the Bayern Munich man at the time, absolute class of a player. And again, Australia, a young team, switching off early on in the game, just letting someone run through them like cones. Now, straight from kickoff, again, I'll never forget this moment. Unbelievable, gives me chills thinking of it. From kickoff, ball comes back. Ryan Miguel on the right back is there, whips it in over the top, and Tim Cahill, as I quote again from his autobiography, it was a moment where, do I chest it? Do I catch it with my foot? Do I header it? It was a bit too far, but he knew that he needed a moment of brilliance. Now, this also proved to create one of the greatest goals not only in Australia's history, but the history of the World Cup. It was the flying ball over the top. Tim Cahill hits it perfectly, and it smashes the crossbar and bounces in. And the scenes were unbelievable. I remember at home we had boys over watching it, and it was crazy. It was like we won the World Cup. It was such an amazing goal. Still to this day, probably the best goal I've ever seen in my life. Which Cahill, personally, he ranks the goal against Japan a little bit higher just because of the situation in the game. Now, in this tournament, Cahill proved to be a legend, continuing to score. However, Australia would go down 3-2 to Netherlands in a spirited fight, and once again, similar to Chile, where we'd lost. However, it was there. People knew that, Australia were doing alright. Memphis Depay proved to be really good in that game, the Dutchman, and Van Persie also proved to be the threat that he is. Now, an expected hard-fought loss to Spain followed this game, seeing Australia finishing 4th in the group, which I think personally, for myself at the time, was almost like, we expected it, but the fact that we got to witness one of the greatest goals and see an Australia team actually fight, and Ange Postecoglou putting out and saying, we're impressed. He was proud of the boys. Now, the loss to Spain and the World Cup tournament, in a sense, was a step forward rather than a step back, even though we didn't walk away with the win. Because the following year, all eyes were on the Asian Cup. The cup where it was all in Australia's hands, and the moment where Australia made history. But once again, a few disappointing losses in friendlies leading up to the Asian Cup, with Cahill now being the oldest player in the team. Once again, Ange and the Socceroos had to overcome plenty of obstacles. With the true leadership shown by Cahill in the lead up to the tournament, a great deal of pressure from fans and media was felt. The first match was played against Kuwait in Melbourne, and inspired Massimo Luongo helped Australia get a convincing 4-1 win in a game where Massimo Luongo really proved his name. I think he was playing for QPR at the time, really showed his worth, a young midfielder playing. Matt Ryan also, Aaron Moy. So Tim Cahill, he said in his book that him, Mille and Bresciano really took it upon themselves to say, boys, enjoy it, be careful what you put on social media, play FIFA if you want, whatever you have to do to keep your mind off the game and off the tournament, do it. However, as soon as you step onto that pitch, you play for one thing, and that's the badge. That's for Australia. Now, 4-1 win, comfortable game. We'd go into an injured captain, Mile Jedinak, in the second game, meant that Tim Cahill would wear the armband. Once again, 4-0 win over Oman. Cahill comes off in the 60th minute, preserving his body. A good sense of communication between Cahill and the gaffer also saying, look, I'm going to play. If you need to take me off, take me off. Keep me for the whole tournament. Let's move on. Australia proceeded to finish second in the group and have a massive couple of games in front of them. A tough game against China where the defenders were extremely fit and kept Cahill extremely quiet in the first half, which started to lose a little bit of hope for the Socceroos. If their talisman is not performing well, or they've just completely shut him out of the game, how's this got to happen? Now, for the 500th time in the Socceroos history, Cahill said, I'm going to take it upon myself let's come up with a couple of tactics of how I can get myself into the game. He says, if I can get both defenders to come out with me, and we've got pace in the wings, like Matthew Leckie, who really shone in that tournament, let's get them on the ball. Robbie Cruz, let's get them on the ball. Because then you whip it in, I'm on. Now, Australia would hit the lead with a Cahill header. He would find the ball in the box, back to goal, and score an unbelievable scissor kick. So for once, not a header. It was a scissor kick. Unbelievable scissor kick. And Australia took the lead, and importantly, now, passion was on great display, the celebration. The team, everyone was there. The team was there. Fans were loving it. They all sunk Cahill on the ground, all getting on top of each other, stacks on. So this was great. Scoring once again to make it 2-0 in the tournament, Australia progressed. The green and gold will then go on to comfortably beat UAE in the semi-final, therefore booking a much-needed and deserved spot in the final of the Asian Cup. Now, Japan were probably favourites. It was expected to be Australia versus Japan final. However, Japan lost in an upset match against UAE, which Cahill said in his autobiography was a little bit disappointing because obviously there's great rivalry, arguably two of the best teams in Asia, and to play them on home turf and just prove that, you know what, we're the best team in Asia was on the line. However, they lost, and we'll get to what happened in the final moments of this tournament. So, playing in Tim Cahill's hometown, they had the Cahill Express in Sydney against South Korea. The night was set. It was a match against the best defence in the league in the tournament who hadn't conceded, and it was a match against fiery attack and solid defence. Cahill had scored 12 goals in 5 games, while chances coming from here and there. The man who continued fine form was Massimo Luongo, who gave Australia the lead 1-0. Now, a banged-up Cahill was subbed halfway through the second half with a standing ovation and a hug to Ange, proving that this could possibly be Cahill's last chance to represent the green and gold. He was getting on in age. We could see that there was a new style of coming into play with Australia, with the young attack. And obviously, we can't have Cahill playing every single game. So I feel like the emotions were really there, and the sense of Australia possibly winning it was starting to hit. But it's not football without a bit of drama, is it? South Korea equalised in the 90th minute. Heartbreak and shock. It was anyone's game from here. We all know extra time, players get rejuvenated, just running on adrenaline. So it finished 1-1. Now we head into extra time, and Cahill reminisces of the time where he saw Juric walking out onto the pitch. Tom Juric, the young striker, puts his hand on his shoulders and says, mate, this is when you shine. This is your time. Time will progress. 14 minutes into the first half of extra time, Juric has got the ball. A nice little flick past the defender. Shot. Keeper rebounds. James Troisi is there. Now another Adelaide boy, similar aspects with John Aloisi, who scored that remarkable goal, the penalty in the World Cup qualifier in 2005. The Adelaide boy was now down to James Troisi, another Adelaide boy, getting a much greatly deserved victory for Australia. Now emotions were running high because the final whistle blew. Australia made history. A sense of euphoria. Australia had never had a moment like this since 2005. This realization that it could be the last time of Cahill in the green and gold was an emotion that hit everyone in the crowd and at home. Soaking up the time with his family, seeing the emotion on his face, there is nothing better. Cahill would proceed to play his final game in the green and gold in 2018 against Syria, finishing with 50 goals in 107 appearances, with Australia bidding farewell to a legend, someone who always brought hope in any situation the Socceroos were in, a man who would leave fans in tears of joy and in sadness watching Australia lose some disappointing games in big tournaments. However, ultimately, Tim Cahill was a man who was a trailblazer for Australia football in history.